Friends, we're mere days away from the 2024 NHL entry draft at the Sphere in Las Vegas. The Calgary Flames will be selecting at ninth overall, and they have the possibility of getting a very good draft selection. The challenge with this year's draft is the complete and utter lack of consensus after the first few picks. So I thought I'd put together a video to sort of try to unravel some of the mystery and provide some insights into my personal opinions on this year's draft class. So I will provide a disclaimer. I am not a draft expert this year. I've seen a decent amount of games of this draft class, but I personally rely very heavily on the expertise of folks like Daily Faceoff, Stephen Ellis, a bunch of people at FC Hockey who I follow on socials, along with a lot of people at McKean's Hockey. So if you want to bone up on your draft content between now and the entry draft, FC Hockey, Daily Faceoff, and McKean's are great resources. There's plenty of great resources. Shout out to a lot of very smart and very dedicated people who spent a lot of time at rinks this year to benefit the rest of us. I tip my cap to you folks because that's a lot of legwork put in, and we all really appreciate it. So please, if you have a chance, throw some love and some clicks those folks' ways. I'll link a few resources in the description of this video. So let's begin. First of all, I personally believe there are three guys I'm pretty confident will not be available at ninth overall. On most of the draft rankings, pretty much all the draft rankings, these players are all gone well before ninth overall. Those three players are Macklin Celebrini, Artyom Levshinov, and Ivan Demidov. Again, just those three guys, just across the board, probably gone, almost definitely gone. Definitely Celebrini, probably Levshinov, most likely Demidov. So none of them will really be discussed here. So next up, we're looking at, I'll call this my preference list for the Calgary Flames if I were the GM or the head scout. If Craig Conroy or Todd Button texted me at ninth overall and said, Ryan, someone burnt all our notes. We don't know who our draft list is. Who would you take? This is sort of my priority list. This is based on, my knowledge of the Flames organization, sort of their needs, and a mixture of each player's respective ceiling and floor through projections. Again, this is not an exact science, and I'll be adding some context from Daily Faceoff's Stephen Ellis from his most recent, top 120 draft rankings, just recently published on Daily Faceoff. So let's dive into this. All right, first off, Sam Dickinson of the London Knights. He's a defenseman. Things I like about him is he's big. He's 6'3", 203. He won gold at the Hlinkas. He won an OHL championship with London. He's just, I would say he's the quote-unquote safe pick, and he's Mr. Everything. Here's what Ellis had to say, quote, I love Dickinson, and I think he's thoroughly underrated by the average fan. A minute muncher with the Knights. Dickinson can do a bit of everything, and he finishes off his blurb with, Dickinson might be the safe pick compared to others with higher upside, but I still believe in him. The Flames have a lot of guys who are either really good defensively or really good offensively, but might have holes on the other side of their game. Dickinson, I would argue, is probably the ideal complement to the guys that Flames already have in terms of just, high floor. Not sure if his ceiling's as high as some of the other guys, but if you're sort of a risk-averse drafter and you just want to have someone who will definitely, or more likely than not, be a nice complement to the Flames' other guys, I really like Dickinson in this spot. So he's my top guy right now. He'd be my 4. Coming in at 5, another big guy, Caden Lindstrom of the Medicine Hat Tigers. He missed a bit of time this year with a back issue, but he big. He big and he talented. He's 6'4", 214, and he's a beast. He is the power forward with a capital P. He, I would say size is something that NHL teams seem to always fetishize to various degrees, and you can kind of understand why when you see Lindstrom play. The Flames very infamously drafted Mark Jankowski in 2012, and Mark Jankowski was big, but he wasn't mean, and he was sort of, I would use the phrase, a big guy that didn't play big. Lindstrom's big, and he knows he's big, and he plays big. Ellis uses the phrase a wrecking ball and monster to describe him, and yeah, it's kind of what he is. He missed some time. He had a back issue, and that's probably to me the only real risk factor with him. He's just, he could be just an absolute beast up the middle for your team. And aside from a minute-munching defenseman that can touch every part of your game, Lindstrom is probably the commodity that teams will really value as long as they have some confidence that the injuries aren't a long-term factor for him. Next up, let's go to college, where we look at blue liner Zaypre from the Denver University Pioneers. He just wins. He's had a great season. He won a national championship with Denver in the NCAA. He won a World Juniors with Team USA. He played a big role in both wins. He's just pretty good at everything. Here's what Stephen Ellis has to say. Quote, Boom is a great skater who loves the puck on his stick, and he never seems to get frazzled no matter what the situation. The NHL looked for Boom to become a high-output puck distributor who can score, hit, block shots, and play on both special teams units. I would argue I like Lindstrom and especially Dickinson a little bit better, just because I think this playing style might not need to change as much as this one would be from coming from college, but you can't argue with the track record, and he's done basically everything you could ask of a player in his first year of college, playing as a teenager in a tough conference, and college is very tough these days, and there's a lot of talent there, and he was one of the best college players, like flat out, especially once the tournament got going. The NCAA tournament, he was a beast, and scouts raved about him, so there's a lot to like there. All right, heading to Russia, another blue liner, big body blue liner, Anton SV from Torpedo. He's 6'7", 207, big, projectable. The big challenge for him is he just doesn't score very much, or at least he has not scored very much yet. And the big challenge for him is, at the very least he can defend, and it's just a question of, do you believe he can figure out the offense? Again, from a Flames perspective, you have enough in your mind guys that can defend at a high level, you think can defend at a high level, and I think the Flames probably need, or feel they need, offensive guys more, or more all-around guys more. And Siliev, he can eat minutes in the KHL. He doesn't have the offensive flair yet. Maybe he'll get it in the KHL. I don't think you're putting a 18-year-old kid in situations where he would generate a lot of offense. In Europe, the tendency is young guys sort of get the scraps and have to earn it, but he's playing a lot, and he just hasn't really generated the offense yet. So we'll see if he does that. But, Siliev, big, you can understand why teams would like him based on his size and based on the details of his game, but he hasn't been able to score consistently quite yet. All right, back to the OHL. Another blue liner, Zaypre, of the Saginaw Spirit. Here's the cool thing: Prek was the only defenseman in the entire OHL who had more points last season than Hunter Brzustevich, the Flames prospect. And yeah, it's impressive, especially because he's 14 months younger. And arguably, you can make a case he's a better all-around player. Here's Ellis. Quote, Prek was far and away the best defensive defenseman in junior hockey this year, and I think the upside of him being a devastatingly good point producer will allow him to go early. Again, if from a Flames perspective, you have enough specialists, so to speak, and having an all-arounder like Dickinson or Boom, I'd have them higher for that reason, just because they're a little more well-rounded. But Prek, he can just do magic with a puck on his stick, and and the name of the game is scoring, and he knows how to do that. So, and maybe he can round out the rest of his game a little bit more. But he's basically, I'd argue, so far the evidence says a better version of Hunter Brzustevich. So you could use 2, better than having 0. So we'll see how they go. But I really like Prek at this spot. All right, next up, I have 3 forwards clustered, and I'm just gonna go one after the other because they're challenging to really sort through. If from a Flames perspective, if you get one of these 3 guys, I think you're going to be very happy because they all have a lot of potential. They have varying upsides, and they all have their own sort of risk factors. My favorite of these 3 guys is Berkeley Catton of the Spokane Chiefs. He's a left shot center. He's not big. He's listed at 5'11", but he's played center pretty much exclusively in the WHL. If you compare him to, say, TJ Ginla, who you'll see in a second, Catton's taken almost 2,200 faceoffs and won 53% of them. Iginla, 317, and he's won 44%. So he's a better Western League center. He's a little bit smaller, a little bit better offensively, just in terms of, being able to finesse the game a bit. And I think the finesse part of Catton's game is what players or what scouts really like about him. Here's Ellis, quote, "Few draft eligibles are as good at producing high-quality chances as Catton, and he works hard enough at both ends to earn the benefit of the doubt as a future NHL center. But we'll see." And to be clear, yeah, Catton isn't huge, but he's 5'11". It's not like we're talking about a puny shrimp out there. I'm not worried about his size, truthfully. His skill negates those concerns for me. Stephen has watched a ton of this draft class, and I'm inclined to sort of, when in doubt, go with what Stephen Ellis says. I like Catton. I like that he's a center. If you're really obsessed about positional need, Catton being a high-end offensive center at the Western League level makes me think he's the highest ceiling of these three guys. The risk, of course, is that he's not huge, and the question is, can he translate the things that he does well, both being an effective center and being an offensive scorer? Because I think those are sort of two aspects to his game that will both need to translate separately. I think he can be I think they sort of go hand in glove, but his sample size is bigger than Iginla's, and he's arguably shown a bit more success in those 2 seasons in the Western League than Iginla has, so I have him ahead. TJ Iginla is next. I did a whole video on TJ Iginla recently. You can go check it out on the channel. He's very good. There's no one debating that TJ Iginla is not good. He's got size, he's got speed, he's got that sort of snarl to his game, he's got some power forward to his game. He hasn't had a lot of reps at center the last couple of years, and that could give some teams some pause, especially if you're a team like the Flames are a bit lean at center. Ellis, quote, "There's top 6 potential here for a guy who loves controlling the pace of play. It doesn't hurt having a family pedigree either. I know some really think he could go in the top 5 in the NHL draft, but I don't know if I see as much true star upside as some others. Regardless, he'll be one heck of a player." Yeah, I mean, at this point, we're basically just splitting hairs. He's very good. The center aspect is a question because, Catton knows how to play center. You don't need to teach him how to play center. He just needs to learn how to translate. With Iginla, you need to teach him a bit more center, considering he hasn't played a lot at the Western League level, especially. He has a 7th of the time that Catton has up the middle. So you'd have to have that kind of learning curve, and then figuring out the offense. So I think there's be a bit more things that Iginla would need to learn. I don't have a doubt in my mind that he'd be able to do it, but Catton, I think, is a little bit further ahead in that respect. But, Iginla's smart enough that I think he's got a reasonably high floor. I mean, I think, again, worst case scenario, if he doesn't pop, he's at least going to be a useful bottom 6 guy. He's got the size, he's got the brain, and I think it's just a matter of making those things come together. Last but not least, Ola Helenius he's playing a Ukraine in the Finnish League on a loan. He's owned by Tappara, so we could say Tappara or Ukraine. He's either way. I would say for him, of the 3, lowest ceiling, highest floor potentially. I've heard scouts say Helenius could play in the NHL next year. He's played a couple of seasons of Finnish pro already. He's got, I think, something like 90 games of high-end pro hockey in a very good league. Ellis, quote, "He's a battler who never gives up on a puck and plays with muscle. His hockey sense is among the leaders in this draft class, and he's just so physically in tune with his own strengths. Helenius has a skill set, knows how to play to it, and knows how to use it to overpower opponents, no matter their experience. Will he be a super high-end player? I don't know. He could be. He's a right shot forward. He plays center. He plays the wing. So he's got the versatility. He's played center in a pro league, in a very good pro league against grown-ass men, and succeeded pretty well. And, maybe he's just a good bottom 6 or middle 6 forward who can do a lot of things for you. There's some value in there. But at the same time, of the 3 guys, he's the guy who might not ever look like a home run, but is probably the most likely to look like a consistent, very solid double. If you're the Flames, you probably prefer a home run at this spot, especially considering you're trying to, kickstart your rebuild, and you might not feel like you have as much high-end talent in the forward ranks as you could. So you can see why they like him, though. All right, next up from Mora in Sweden's second-tier Hockey Allsvenskan, Michael Brandsteg Nygaard. Another really good, he's a winger, got decent size, good skill set. Ellis, quote, Brandon Nygaard has one of the best shot releases in the draft, and with the line mates, he's going to be one heck of a scoring threat. Maybe not an all-around player, but if you put him with the right center, maybe he can really pop for you. And I think his offensive game is very good. His defensive game, it's getting there. You could probably work him along. He might be a little bit of a project, but I think the offensive skill set teams will really, really like. From the Calgary Hitmen, defenseman Cardy Yakobchuk. I've seen a bit of this guy the last couple of years. He's really good. He's big. He's toolsy. I think the big challenge for Yakobchuk is that he wants to be everything. He wants to do everything. And the Hitmen the last couple of seasons have been kind of lean, so it's basically been the Cardy Yakobchuk show. And it's kind of had to be. And when he's on his game and he's sort of utilizing his teammates well, he can be really, really good. He's got a good shot. He's got size. He scored 30 goals last year. Ellis, quote, with some seasoning, Yakobchuk could be a high output defender in the NHL who might be a second pair blue liner, but someone you can throw on the power play for nice results. So there's something there. It's just a matter of helping him polish out the rough spots in his game a bit. And finally, last but not least, potentially one of the best shooters in the entire draft class, winger Cole Eiserman from the U.S. National Development Team's Under-18 club. Amazing shot. Great shooter, tons of goals. He's been called in both a non-factor and invisible defensively. He's really good at one thing. He needs to work at the rest of his game. I think the things he's great at are the things that are toughest to be really good at in hockey, and the things he's not good at, you probably hope you can teach him. Ellis, quote, I think the upside is still huge, but at this point, you're going to need a more defensively responsible center to take the pressure off of him. The right usage will allow Eiserman to be a star, and I truly believe in him. So, again, when in doubt, I tend to lean on Stephen Ellis' judgment here. So that's a quick tour through some of the players the Flames could be selecting at 9th overall. Like I said, there's none of these guys who seem like they're going to be bad players. They're all good at different things. And when you're looking at a class like this, it's not so much who the best player is. It's sort of a lot of it based on skill preference and your personal preference of weighing skill ceiling versus skill floor. If you're risk averse, you go for a guy with a high floor because you're figuring, when in doubt, at least he'll be okay. If you're someone who's a little bit more risky and willing to take on that chance, you go for the home run swing. And I don't think there's, depending on what hockey club you're running or a fan of, I don't know if there's necessarily a bad way of doing it. There's just different ways. So we'll see how that goes. And a quick plug from me, I wrote a book, came out in March. It is called On the Clock, Behind the Scenes of the Calgary Flames, the NHL Draft. It is about the history of the Flames franchise at the NHL Entry Draft. So as you're approaching draft weekend, if you're at all interested in the Flames and their history and the draft in general, I had a lot of fun writing it. I've been told people like it. I cannot be objective with my own writing, so hopefully you enjoy it. I'll leave a link in the description so you can go check it out if you are at all curious. I'm planning on being in Vegas for the draft, so if you see me around and you have a book on you, come give me a shout. I'll sign it for you if I have a pen, or if you give me a pen. But it was fun to write, so hopefully everyone enjoys it. If you want to see more videos like this, please like and subscribe. And if you have any comments, criticisms, suggestions, fire those down in the comments. And thank you for watching. And I will be back on the channel probably just slightly after the NHL draft in Vegas. So hopefully everybody has fun, and hopefully your favorite team does things that don't make you too mad.